Okay, thanks once again, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started as the clock rings the bell at 7:30. Again, hopefully everyone knows this is the webinar for the heads of delegation for the 2018 Winter Games. And as a reminder, the slides as well as the recording will be available to you guys in the next day or so. So just be on the lookout for that. So no need to take massive notes in regards to the slides, as those will be available to you. Also, if you do have a question, you can type in the question in the question box, or there's a little hand-looking icon. You can click on that to indicate you're raising your hand to ask a question. And as Mike said, he will be monitoring anyone who has the questions. Again, I do apologize for my voice. I am under the weather a little bit as the bug is going around our offices as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. And again, thanks for everyone for attending so far. So again, the purpose of tonight's meeting is basically just to talk with the HODs so you can relay the information to your people that from your county programs, share the related information. We'll highlight a few things that are changed from the years past going into this year. And again, just start the communication with you guys to have engagement with any questions so that we can make sure we're all prepared for the games. So we'll also, as we all know, leading up to events, we're not going to have all the questions you may have. We may not have all of the answers tonight, but again, we'll make note and work hard and diligently to get any questions you have that we do not have answers for in a timely manner. Just a reminder, again, we also have some upcoming pre-competition and pre-games webinars for alpine skiing and snowshoeing. The dates and times are listed there. The link for the snowshoeing is there, and you can also check the area memo, and we'll make sure that the link for the Alpine Coaches meeting or Alpine Coaches webinar is in your hands as well to share with the coaches. One of the things we're also looking at doing is an additional HOD webinar right before the games, and we'll see how that goes. We'll get that information out to you guys as well. One of the things I'll start off with is the housing. For those of you who were with us last year, we'll be using the same housing locations that we did last year, although we cannot ensure that each delegation will be staying in the same place you stayed last year. But primarily, those are the Ramada Plaza and the Country Inn and Suites there in Hagerstown. Those of you who've been involved with many years with us, these locations going back to 2016 are a little closer than what we had in that year, and the previous years about 10 to 15 minutes closer, give or take, to the resort. One of the things we do ask is, as we want to streamline the communication, please do not have anyone from the delegations call the hotels directly. Jane Dunn from our games management team will contact the HODs to get your housing assignments and have that communication for you. So again, just please let people know that you're the person for any participants, coaches, partners, athletes, etc., that you'll take their information, pass it along to Jane, and then she'll fill in the blanks and get you guys back to which locations you'll be staying at this year. That's just a brief slide there just to show you the previous locations from 2016 and a couple years earlier than that, and then where our new location is for the hotels. So some highlights for the upcoming Winter Games. As we always do with each of our events, looking for any athletes to serve in athlete leadership positions. That can be in sports roles, anything from helping to set up the courses to serve as officials, or anything running general operations, such as helping out in the control center, helping out with the awards preparation or presentations, the staging areas, in general operations. So if you have an individual who would not be competing, but you think would fill that role, and we're not looking for the warm bodies, we want them to have a meaningful involvement just like we do in competitions. I'm an individual who can take ownership and with a little bit of guidance and direction, really serve a role and give them some tools to help out with our games management team and as we move forward.
Okay, and Steve, one note on that, by the way, and this is something that came up 2 years ago, so you may not be aware of it. We just want to clarify, pretty much all of the roles require the athlete to go outside. Even if they're not doing a sport component, even if they're just helping out with the control center, they would have to go outside to deliver stuff or pick up papers or something like that. We had an athlete who signed up to do it, to serve as a leader a couple of years ago, and had to then decline because he really couldn't handle being outside for any extended period of time. So that would be something certainly to make sure of. Doesn't mean they're going to be up on the slopes or anything like that, but they should be prepared to be outside.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, Mike. And again, if you have anyone who you think would be able to fulfill one of the roles, or there's an interest, you can send me an email, and I can work with you on that, see what roles we're looking at, talk with our management team and set up mentors, and also, as appropriate, bring in Jason Schrimmel and Kieran Northrup as far as the athlete leadership opportunities. Another thing I would like to address is similar to last year. We do have Special Olympics Delaware who will be joining us as well this year for alpine skiing only. We did just in the last couple of days receive potential interest from Special Olympics Virginia. If they come, I'm not sure what sports, if both of them, or if it would just be alpine as well. So that's just more of an information sharing with you than anything else, just to let you be aware that Delaware and Virginia will be coming. The important thing to note there is similar to all of our athletes, we do require them to do the same thing we ask of our athletes and partners as far as the time trials and the competitions. Additional opportunities, we're also exploring the snowboarding demonstration. It's not a competition with medals and ribbons. However, if you have an interest similar to any athlete serving in leadership roles, if you have anybody who is comfortable and is a current snowboarder or has tried the sport, those are the athletes we'd be looking at potentially having a demonstration for. This is not a learn how to snowboard. It's more of here's how they do it. And we're looking to potentially build that up into a competition in the upcoming years. So similarly, if you have anybody interested, you can contact your regional sports director and filter that to me or send me an email directly. Hopefully everyone's aware that the big change this year is the combination of the time trials and the competition into the same stretch of a few days there at the same weekend time frame. So that has been combined this year, so starting on February 25th with the time trials, and then the 26th and 27th moving right into the competitions. One of the other changes is the opening ceremony will be conducted on the evening of Sunday the 25th after the time trials. We'll have a short time frame for dinner and then move right into the opening ceremony that evening.
And dinner will be at Whitetail as well. So
correct.
That'll be great.
Families and spectators, same as in the past. We'll have 2 locations for family hospitality, 1 for alpine. Same location as last year. We got a lot of compliments about that location. It's in the 2nd floor of the new lodge area, big bay windows and space for the parents and family members to stretch out, have a quick drink of coffee, maybe a cookie, and socialize and get some information regarding Special Olympics. Snowshoeing will be located down near the tubing park during the competition days. One of the things we really stress for this is that this is really designed and dedicated to the family members of the athletes. It's not for the athletes to go up, congregate, take advantage of the free snacks. This is strictly for the family members of the participants during the game. So if you could please let your coaches and others from your delegation spread that word, we'd appreciate it. The family reception will be in a new location this year. It's at the Homewood Suites, which is right in the same geographical area, kind of in between where the Ramada Plaza and the Country Inn and Suites will be. That'll be happening Monday evening during the athlete dance from 7:30 to 8:30. And again, same thing as the family hospitality. This is designed strictly for the families to talk about situations they may be having challenges with, to talk with their peers and discuss some educational, some independent living, all kinds of educational opportunities and support systems for the families. So again, that's not for athletes. That's primarily and only designated for the families of the participants. Family meals, basically they're on their own. If they're staying in a hotel, hopefully that hotel will offer some sort of breakfast for them. For lunch, as a general public, they are more than happy to and encouraged to take advantage of the Whitetail cafeteria line. And dinners, they're on their own as well. I will say at the family reception, there will be some light snacks, but it's not a meal. So that Monday night from 7:30 to 8:30 for the social is not a meal. It's more of a social gathering with some light snacks there.
Okay. And unlike at many of our events, there are the hotels are right by several eating establishments. There's a good choice that folks don't have to travel far at all if they want to go out and get dinner on their own.
Yeah. And once we get the event guide published, we do list those, at least some of the gas stations, restaurants, etc., that are in the nearby area. So again, like we stated earlier, the big change this year is the combination of competition and time trials. So Sunday, February 25th, will be the time trials, where all athletes and partners that attend to compete during the competition on the 26th and 27th must attend the time trials. A lot of advantages to combining the two, but most importantly, it's to make sure that we get better, accurate assessments of their times and their levels and stuff moving right into the next day or two with the same snow conditions. And again, like we said earlier, competition for both snowshoeing and alpine will be on Monday and Tuesday, February 26th and 27th. Depending on your computer size, this may be hard to read, but again, just know that we are sending out the slides to everyone. So I'm not going to go over everything, but basically, again, Sunday's the time trials. In the morning, we'll have the delegations sign up, register, collect some of their information. And again, these time trials will be set up by delegation. So each delegation will get a time frame for when your time trials will be set.
For Alpine.
For Alpine only. Right. And again, those will be on the whitetail courses. Looking to start the warm-ups around 10 o'clock in the morning, and then work through the day. Lunch, we're given a window from 11 to 1:30. Again, that will be at the whitetail dining area. And then snowshoeing warm-ups will happen right around that lunchtime, 12:15 to 1:45-ish for warm-ups, and then move into time trials from 2 to 4. Throughout the day, we will have delegations being able to come and check in for their hotels, which is kind of a new twist this year as well. We're looking to have that availability from 3 to 6 p.m. in the control center at Whitetail. And for the 25th, some of the details are still being determined, but most likely the control center on the 25th will be in the upper level of the new resort area where we've had the check-in previously during the time trials. Then hopefully we'll be able to move that on Monday and Tuesday to the other location over near the ski check and rentals and all that for the competition days. The opening ceremony, or like I said, then dinner, we're looking to have that around 4:30 to 5:45, and then move right into the opening ceremony, which will be during the evening there at Whitetail. And we've got some potential things we are looking at doing this year, knowing that it might be a little bit darker, but we will have it outside on the patio, same location as in the past. One of the challenges that we'll have with this combination is to get all the schedules done for Monday. Right after the time trials, our competition management teams will be working diligently to get that done. Our hope is to get those out at least electronically of the evening of Sunday, and potentially have some printouts for the coaches at the hotels. But we're working on that right now. We're also looking at having a couple coaches meetings and HOD meetings the evening of Sunday as well. Then we move into our competition day. Again, you'll have breakfast at the hotels, delegation registration at Whitetail at the control center. We'll have some schedules available for you that morning as well. Move into the competition and the hospitalities. The actual Alpine competition looks to begin around 10 a.m. and that's actual competition. The course inspection will occur around 9:30. We'll break for lunch from 11 to 1:45. Have awards throughout the day. Snowshoeing will start at 12:30 on Monday. Again, that's because we'll talk about that in a minute, but they're going to have two different courses and venues they're dealing with the new setup this year. Again, we'll have dinner Monday evening at the Ramada Plaza for the delegations, and move into the athlete dance and then the family reception at the hotel adjacent. And one of the things we're looking at doing on the evening of Monday right after the competition breaks is looking at the potential of having some fun coaches racing. That would be, and more information to follow. But what we're looking at doing is, again, having some fun. I know in the past we've had it. I do remember back many years ago in snowshoeing when we first started it, the coaches, it was asked to do a relay race, and the coaches wanted to get out there and do some fun activities. And those coaches who had not been in the snowshoes before got a real taste of how challenging that sport is. And it was very fun to see the athletes coaching the coaches and showing them what to do. So again, it's a fun activity we're looking at incorporating this year.
Steve, I'm sorry, just before we go in, just one note. We've talked about for Alpine and Snowshoe, for the time trials being on Sunday. Just one note to let you know ahead of time, folks, the time trials for the Glide and Super Glide will still be on Monday, just as they had before. We can't get access to the space where we need to do that on Sunday. So your Glide and Super Glide athletes will have their time trials on Monday. That said, we certainly do want them to come up on Sunday in time for dinner and the opening ceremony and such. But just want to clarify so that folks know that for that level athlete, Alpine only, Glide, Super Glide, time trials on Monday.
Thank you, Mike. And then on Tuesday, same kind of thing, breakfast at the hotels, check-in, family hospitalities will be open, course inspection for Alpine at 9, and then the snowshoeing competition start around 9:15, give or take, and then Alpine starting around 10. We'll break for lunch. And again, like we said, we're looking at the potential of having the snowboard demonstration. Some of the key changes, we've talked about the time trials enough. The opening ceremonies, as I mentioned, will be on Sunday evening. The training components, we have two sessions set up. January 6th and February 10th would be for the on-snow athlete training for gate training and race training. And again, some of the registration fees are mentioned here at the slide as well. Again, it does an additional night for housing, but depending on your delegation, some of you incurred that cost in years past as well.
Right, and just to point out, if the day of registration is new this year, it's in response to some requests that we received at Winter Games last year and the conversation we then had subsequently with the area directors. So that the day of registration is strictly for those delegation members who either are not staying overnight, in many cases such as Washington County and some other counties that are relatively close by, may not be staying overnight. In addition, if the athletes are not staying overnight with the main delegation, and the area is, or their family is assuming the cost of the lodging, they would have that day of registration rate. That said, other than, well, their breakfast would be at the hotel for the day of registration rate. Everything else is the same. Everything else is included. The only thing that's not included in that rate is the 2 nights, the Sunday night and the Monday night lodging. So we'll go through the process of when Jane gets your housing request of who is in which category, and then with George and such, we'll work out the necessary fees associated with that to be charged back to your folks or to your area.
Okay, and again, as Mike was indicating earlier, this is just a little bit more details, if you will, as what we anticipate. Again, as you see in the top screen, it says tentative, and then lower it even goes further and says subject to change. This is what we anticipate for Monday. For the finals for Alpine would be the giant slalom events, Super G events, and the glide and super glide time trials. Then on Tuesday, the glide and super glide finals, and the slalom all levels, including unified.
And just 2 notes on that also. I'm sorry, the Alpine team had a meeting recently with this. So the current intention actually is the super glide finals may also be on Monday, okay, with the time trials in the morning and then that in the afternoon. And then also for those folks who have had competitors in the Super G, which has tended to take quite some time to get through, the shift to the time trials on Sunday will allow a lot more time for the Super G, and so the challenges with the scheduling for that should be virtually eliminated. Basically, they can start that, or will be starting that as early as 10 or 10:30 this year, as opposed to not being able to start it until somewhere around 12:30 or so in previous years. So the additional time will really help with the scheduling on that and should make for a somewhat less hectic day.
Great, thank you, Mike. And this is just an overall overview of the layout and what we anticipate, where things will be occurring. So again, like we said, the Alpine staging and awards area out on the patio, same place as the opening ceremony. We have the control center, most likely on Monday and Tuesday only, would be over near the Kids Mountain Camp area and the rental area. We will have the overnight ski storage again in the big, large buckets, if you will, that we'll be able to store for the delegations overnight. The shuttle bus pickup. Those of you who haven't been there before, there is a shuttle that runs from the parking area back to the main lodge area. So we encourage you guys to utilize that. One of the things we've also, I didn't hear any complaints last year, so I appreciate everyone's patience in disseminating the information, but there is some restricted parking. If you go follow the area or the arrow pointing to the snowshoe competition area, a lot of parking back in that area as well, but there is some specific areas that will be designated as no parking. So we really thank those of you who helped us disseminate that information last year and encourage to do so again this year.
And then just one other note, in case anybody on the call has either been speaking to some of your Alpine coaches or were at the Alpine coach training that was held here, we are exploring the possibility of doing staging for Alpine somewhat differently. It's not worth going into it right now in terms of the detail. It would basically have the your coaches deliver your athletes, instead of going to a main central staging area, deliver them to the start area for each race. That is not definite yet. There are all sorts of things that are being worked out, but just wanted to acknowledge that to minimize confusion later, that is still being discussed. We got some pretty positive feedback. It's the way that they operated at the 2017 World Games in Austria. So we're giving it some consideration. In general, the coaches that we've talked to so far have been supportive of the concept. There's some issues to be worked out. So more to come on that, not something you need to worry about at the moment.
Thank you, Mike. One thing I will point out, again, we're anticipating that the reality is going to be the control center on Sunday will be in the main lodge. So if you look kind of in the center of the screen where it says Family Hospitality Area in yellow, kind of pointing up to that general area where the control center will most likely be on Sunday. And then, like I said, on Monday and Tuesday, we'll move it over to the far left top corner of the slide where it does indicate the control center and check-in area. Next up is, again, just the anticipated courses we're using this year, similar to what we've used in the past. Hoping that the snow cooperates with us this year and all the courses will be open. Again, those of you who were with us last year, again, just a big thank you to Whitetail and their staff of putting together some courses that allowed us to provide the opportunity for the athletes. So know that if we get in that same situation this year, we will work diligently with Whitetail staff and make the best call that we can for what we have been given as far as Mother Nature. But know that if we do make the call, it's a go. I know there was some trepidation last year looking at some of the courses on their webcams leading up to the games, but those of you who did come up, I think were amazed what they did overnight. And again, just trust us as we always have the health and safety of the athletes at all of our decisions as the most important. So we wouldn't put anybody in jeopardy. Again, here is the time trials location. You heard me mention a little earlier that there are different locations for snowshoe. Because we've got such great feedback last year leading up and after the event where the snowshoe competition was taking place at the tubing park, we're going to look to do that again this year. However, for the time trials on that Monday, that Sunday, they will be where we've had it in the past up by the mountain operations area. That will be on Sunday for the time trials only, again, weather permitting. And then we will move back down to the tubing park for the actual competition on Monday and Tuesday. So this just kind of gives you the time trials up at the mountain operations area for snowshoeing. And then down there at the bottom, you see the competition location for the finals, which provides a great opportunity and viewing spaces for all involved. So at this time, go ahead and go over a few registration deadlines and turn it over to Mike.
Sure.
To take a few of these slides.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Hopefully all of you have seen this slide or this type of slide before. I don't want to have to go into a whole lot of detail. There's the training registration deadline. That's the date by which everyone who's participating in your training program needs to be registered in GMS as training in their respective sport, all your athletes, unified partners, coaches, etc. Anybody who's added after that, and we certainly want to have everybody who's participating included at some point in GMS, but if they're added after the 11th, it's great that they're training. They just would not be eligible to participate in the winter games. We then have, of course, the deadline to get any outstanding forms. At that point, by January 22nd, all the athletes, we have to have a medical on file that is valid through the last day of winter games, which is February 27th, on file at headquarters. Again, no change in the process. It's the same process we've had for years. As well, every coach, unified partner, volunteer, etc., needs to have their volunteer application as well as their protective behaviors on file at headquarters. Again, those valid through the 27th, the end of winter games. All coaches need to have their concussion certificate, and we are moving into a period, again, that we added, or Special Olympics included the concussion certification as a requirement for all coaches 3 years ago or so. We are now rolling into the time frame when some who submitted them originally may be expiring. We haven't had to to keep track of that or notice that before. But we do have some that have ones that are good that will be expiring, but they need to have that on file valid through the 27th. In addition, all head coaches need to have their coach certification for their sports certification ready at that point. Then we do have the competition registration deadline on the 12th. That's when you would need to have your events. There is no entry time that you would need to have at that point, but we do need to have the events that the athletes are competing in, as well as their levels if they're alpine skiers, so novice, intermediate, advanced. And at that point, if you're having relays for snowshoe, or if you're having unified teams for alpine, their teams would need to be designated at that point. With the time trials being the day before the competition, there is very limited opportunity to move people around by level between the day of the time trial and the Winter Games, the competition itself. It would only be in extreme situations that we would be able to do that. So we need all that stuff in there. Again, we've got sort of a proverbial gun to our head to turn that data around. And I, having been the one when we had the structure before, was dealing with that, I can tell you that it is high stress, and we really can't handle a whole lot of changes that are coming through at that point. So, and again, those dates, as is always the case with here, those are the dates you need to get the information to whoever, or I'm sorry, that's the date that they need to be in GMS or at headquarters. Talk to your GMS manager, whoever's handling entering stuff for you, for your county, as well as whoever is handling your submission of athlete and athlete medicals and volunteer forms. They may need the information or the forms from you prior to those specific dates so that they can process them. It's unrealistic for you to give them stuff on the deadline that it's due and for them to drop everything in their life and get it in. So work that out well ahead of time. And then just some highlights. We're not going to go through everything here. At the end of the slide deck, there is examples of all the forms and so on down the line. Everyone, and I should say this as an aside for athletes, the medicals that they need to have on file, if there's any new medical, it needs to be the new version, the one with multiple pages. We are not accepting for lack of a better term, the old version that was just 2 pages plus an extra release sign. As is noted here, everybody who's participating in any way, shape, or form in your program needs to have, if they're an athlete, they need to have a medical, valid and current. If they're a volunteer, they need to have the application and valid and received. There is no grace period. I'm surprised I still need to say that, but have found from folks that there's still, that folks are letting, in some occasions, athletes participate without a medical or they're waiting to get the new one, and you cannot do that. You are personally taking on the liability for any injury that occurs, and it is not acceptable. And if it's a continuing thing, we may need to look at some other actions. So I can tell you, when we have found that an athlete has been training or participating without a medical, they've been disqualified and eliminated, not just coming for participation ribbons. They've been eliminated from an event. Please don't put yourself or your athletes in that position. There can be absolutely no exceptions to this. Steve, next. So qualifying for Winter Games, again, the folks, the athletes, or the competitors, I should say, need to meet all registration deadlines and other deadlines that are there. The athletes and partners need to compete in a minimum of 3 on-snow training sessions. They don't all have to be at Whitetail. The 2 optional sessions that we are providing with race and gate training are highly recommended, because there's few other times that you'll get an opportunity to do gates. At least for Alpine specifically, that's a really key opportunity. But they can each count as 1 training session. For Alpine, one of the sessions has to be training, and again, that can be met by those dates. I'm sorry?
Gate training.
Gate training, yeah. So there's an additional time or an opportunity to go that you would need to identify for athletes. And if folks are wondering, well, I mean, in the past, or at least the last year or so, we've counted the time trial day as one day and the day before, if folks came up, as another day. Are we increasing the number of one snow requirements here because the time trials aren't part of this now? And the answer really is no, because we are adding in the January 6th date, which was first added in last year. So this is the same requirement that you've had for your athletes have had for several years. If we bring athletes to both of those training opportunities on the 6th, on January 6th and February 10th, you'd still only need to be adding one additional training opportunity. And then for snowshoe, of course, there's a little bit more flexibility if we have a good snow year. Those trainings don't necessarily have to be at Whitetail. And a little later on, Steve has some information on if you want to schedule time either at Whitetail, Round Top, or Liberty, some special pricing that, I don't know if we have all the prices just yet, but at least some of the ones that we have. Next up. As a reminder also, hopefully, this probably isn't anything that you individually are dealing with, but your medical forms, all areas are submitting them a new way, and they need to be submitted through our remote connection. Please do not be emailing your medical forms or your volunteer applications, for that matter, we need to watch HIPAA standards in terms of security and such, and so that's not permitted. As is noted here, we have a new individual, Khadijah McIntyre, who started, I think today was her 8th work day. Some of you got to meet her at the bowling tournament this past Sunday. So Khadijah, she's great, she's dynamite, but she is still moving up the learning curve. I think she's going to be a tremendous asset for us. But please be gentle with her as she is learning her new stuff, as she's pretty much got the volunteer things down and is going to be shifting over to start doing more on the medicals, and then we'll get through the big backlog that we've had and to clear things out. So we're thrilled to have her, and hopefully you'll enjoy seeing her, working with her. This is just a reminder again of the coach requirements. For coaches, they need your Class A or the regular volunteer application, protective behaviors and concussion training, and then also for the head coaches, their sports certification, and then a reminder, all other volunteers, your unified partners and any other volunteer, need to complete the volunteer screening and the protective behavior screening. And I'm sorry, actually, one of the things that's not on here that I should note as well, just as a reminder, we've had a standard 3-to-1 ratio that's been required, or as a cap in terms of the number of athletes and compared to the number of supervisory personnel. That is still in effect. What that basically means is that for you'll be granted one a spot for one supervisory person, a coach, volunteer, head coach, HOD, whichever, for every 3 athletes that you have on your roster. The unified partners certainly count towards the overall delegation count, but they don't count in terms of that ratio. If you go above the number of supervisory personnel, so let's say, and this has happened, let's say you've got 10 athletes and you want to bring 5 supervisory personnel, anybody above that ratio, you're going to get charged the full rate. The registration fee of 120 or even the 195 for the overall lodging does not cover the entire cost of the participants, so you would be charged above that. In addition, with the housing, we may not be able to accommodate them. Please do look at that and choose wisely.
Yeah, the other thing I'll just add on to that is, 3-to-1 is a very good ratio here in Maryland that we do allow. Typically throughout Special Olympics, it's more so a 4-to-1. So again, we are giving you a little bit of leeway there with 3-to-1.
Yeah, and we're not saying you can't bring them. We're just saying we're not going to subsidize them. Slides should look familiar here. Again, we're including it so that you have it handy. It's the links for the protective behavior certification, which again expire every 3 years and must be taken care of before the competition. We'll edit this slide before it sends out to you. It still has Rachel Maddox's email address on there. While Rachel is still working with us on a part-time basis and seasonal basis, she's not the person that will go to, so we'll correct that when we send this slide deck out to you. And then the next one, as Steve clicks through as he's writing down some notes, is the same type of information for the concussion certification, the links and all there. And so there's you should all be familiar with it, but there's the links that you've got. What else? And then just a reminder with the sports certification, there's a long-standing policy. So most of your coaches are probably, or your head coaches are already there. We are saying that it applies to all coaches. We're really watching it for head coaches. If you have someone, we had an Alpine sports or coaches training, I think the weekend or the Saturday before Thanksgiving. There's some other online opportunities and such. If you have somebody who's in a situation for Alpine or for snowshoe, for that matter, that needs some training, we can work something out for you. I think the next slide is similar in terms of the basic content there. In terms of what they have, again, this hasn't changed from the last many years. And I think, is that it for me? And back to you. Yeah, that's you.
Yep.
Okay.
So again, as we talked about, the race and gate training for Alpine, again, Saturday, January 6th is one of these training sessions. We will have Alpine and snowshoeing coaches training, and Ron Freeman is in direct contact with the snowshoeing coaches, and Kendall and the Alpine crew with the Alpine coaches. There is a limited opportunity at some of the events, so in regards to that, we will be sending out information by hopefully Monday to start collecting information from the delegations as to the athletes who anticipate to take advantage of these two training sessions. So one of the things we do want to make note of is at these sessions, the athletes may not be with the coaches for the entire day. So if you have additional personnel that you can take who are not attending the training but can serve in a supervisory role for the athletes to help out in that situation, that would be great.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misread that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So again, we will be sending out some information to you by the 11th of December to gather that information, and when we need that back, we're still working through, but just know that that will be coming shortly, and if you can turn that around in a quick time frame, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, in talking with Matt, we have not spoken, I haven't checked with Ron yet on this, but Matt had indicated that we could probably go as late as the Wednesday, possibly even the Thursday before the 6th, in terms of numbers and such for that. So we'll give you as much time as we can. We want to be inclusive here.
Again, the management team will have the courses set up with the gates and stuff on January 6th and on February 10th as well for Alpine. Some of the costs will be charged back to the areas for those in attendance for those two training sessions. If there is any need for a delegation to make housing arrangements or hotel arrangements, please know that that is on your own, and that will not come through our state office, although we do highly recommend the hotels we're using, as they may be able to give you a rate. You can mention that you're with Special Olympics for those training sessions if the need arises where you need housing or lodging locations.
And actually, Steve, as you're saying that, one thing you may want to keep in mind, while we won't be there and we won't have courses set up on Sunday, if your delegation wants to spend the night up there and do some skiing coach with athlete on Sunday the next day, either on, I guess it would be January 7th or February 11th, you certainly can do that, and that can count as an additional training opportunity. So that's entirely up to you. We will not be there, and you'll need to work out the payment with the group sales. That Steve will go over that in just a minute. That's certainly an opportunity. Just because we're not going to be there, or we won't be having anything organized on those Sundays, does not mean that you can't be there. You can certainly do that as if you were doing it just one of your own trips up there. So something to consider.
And again, good segue there, Mike. For those of you who would like to make your own arrangements, we've identified the group sales office at Whitetail with their phone number there and their extension to call. Just identify yourself as you're part of the Special Mix Maryland group, and they will work to give you the rates that you see here listed. It is a little increase from last year. I think some of them went up about $5, give or take. But again, it's really significantly less than what they typically give their group rates. So they haven't, this is my second year back, but I know that they haven't raised the rates in 5 or 6 years. So again, very beneficial to us to take advantage of those costs. So again, just make your own arrangements like Mike said, or even if you don't need to stay overnight, you want to drive home on the evening of the 6th and come back on the 7th, you can work it out with them at that time as well. But again, on your when you're doing your own training, nothing has to come through our state office. This would be working directly with Whitetail if that is the resort that you choose to do your additional training on. Round Top and Liberty are also available, and some of the sister properties there. Not 100% sure on their rates, but they will be similar to these, if not identical. So it may fluctuate $5 to $10 on the other ones. We just haven't had confirmation from Round Top and Liberty, but again, it'll be right around those same rates. Like I said, we're still working with Round Top and Ski Liberty just to confirm their rates, but again, it'll be very comparable.
Okay, and Frank Altrichter, who's on the line, just typed in a question. And Frank, I'm sorry, I actually did, as I was answering, I figured out what you meant. But asking what the registration requirement is for the athlete on snow, I could see where people might be a little concerned about, what information do we have to gather. We're talking very basic stuff. We just want to know who is coming. So not just a number, but we want to know the names of the people. We want to make sure we have medicals and all that stuff available for them and such. We would need that, and then their estimated level, and of course the sport that they're in. So we want that for all athletes, coaches, everybody who's coming up, so that we can be adequately prepared. We are not talking about anything elaborate. So it's basically a roster with basic information that you should already have. The levels for any of them won't preclude a person from, if they're down as doing a novice and they want to do some of the stuff on the intermediate course that Matt and his team and Terry and all are able to set up, that's fine. We just want to kind of get a sense of what to expect. So Frank, thanks for the question.
Again, we hit this earlier, but again, just a reminder of the current and valid medicals for athletes. And Mike touched on that earlier, so I won't do any repeat there.
Yeah, I think this gets into the
forms.
The forms and such, so that might be.
And again, I'll just run through these. These are forms that everyone should be familiar with, but just going to click through them. Not going to go through them all.
Yeah.
Hopefully, those of you who have responsibility in relations to these forms have seen them before. So again, we've talked about all of the information. One of the things, just again, if you're not aware, just to make you aware that there are incident reports. So anytime there's property damage or lost items or injuries to any of the participants or volunteers for whatever event you're doing within Special Olympics, know that this form is very important. Your area director should have that, or someone from the management team at the county or area level. And it's very important to fill out that information, report it, so that insurance is aware and can make their collections and file the reports.
Yeah, and actually with that, if you are going and skiing, or and in most cases, if you're going to go up to one of the locations to ski, not to do snowboard or snowshoeing, should have a copy or some copies of this available, since medical will be implemented by the ski patrol that's there to get them to fill that out. Then one other thing that's come up recently with these in terms of the use of the form, and hopefully no one has this issue or this concern, but if you do have an athlete or anyone for that matter who is experiencing or exhibiting some behavioral challenges and you need to document something that's occurred, for future reference. These can use that purpose or serve that purpose as well. Yes, there is very limited space on the form itself, but the magic of turning the paper over and using the back or another thing of paper can certainly take care of that for you. So thanks back to you, Steve, and I'll read the question from Marilyn.
Okay, and as Mike's looking at the next question, again, here's just, and I did not update this slide, and that is my bad.
Oh, my Lord. Okay, that's a flash from the past.
Those of you might have remembered Nick Anderson. He's no longer with us. So I will update.
Nick is still alive. Nick is doing great. He's doing well, working with junior achievement, as is Nat. So. Yeah, Melissa Anger is still employed here with us at Special Mix Maryland, as is Ron Freeman. But my apologies. Kristen Mullins is with us here, joined us last summer, as well as Kendall Zeswitz. So I apologize. I will update this slide before it gets sent out. Okay. And Marilyn had a question, and I may have misspoke when describing the new medical form. Maryland, it is not a requirement that everybody's forms, that everybody have a new medical form. If that's how it came out, I apologize. Going back to when we were talking about the medical forms, what I meant to say, or intended to say, was that any new medical that is submitted must be the new medical form. So if they have a medical on file, it's the old form, so on down the line, that's fine until it expires, but any subsequent form, we're not accepting any new medicals using the old form. The new form's been out there for, I think, 1.5 years or more now, and so anything new coming in should be that new form. So I apologize if that didn't come across as clearly as I intended earlier. And Michelle is asking that to clarify, athletes need 3 days on snow training prior to the 25th. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. That the 25th for time trials. Well, let's put it this way. Do not plan on that counting. We have a Winter Games management team meeting next Wednesday that will explore that, but you should. And again, the requirement that we've got here, we're providing you a couple days, and then you would just need to work one out. If there's any change from that, we'll let you know by the end of next week. Hopefully that. Any other questions? I see Frank, you have your hand up. I don't know if it was for your earlier question, but Frank, your line should be open.
I heard. Thank you. I'm not sure if the family reception is different from prior years. It sounds like you're offering more generic parent communications at this one versus basically a social. Are you offering something more, or is it pretty much the same as always?
Hey, Frank, it's Steve. It's pretty much going to be the same as in the past. I know they have had some speakers come in the past and address whether it was independent living, insurance, some things of that nature, or some presentations. I'm not sure exactly what their plan is this year. They're still getting some details figured out there. But I would say at this point it's more of just a social gathering, come in, relax, let's talk, let's meet you, let's get you signed up. How's it going? How can we serve you better from a family perspective? So I'm not sure if there's any guest speakers at this point. By all means,
if we do extend to have that kind of information, if it was either in the event guide or let us be informed, we can spread the word out to the parents. They might not have come in the past, but they may come if they know there's a special program.
Absolutely, Frank. Thank you for the question.
Any other questions? Again, you can either raise your hand and we'll open up your phone line, or you can type it in. And Marilyn, I don't know if you saw my response. I'll connect with you on your follow-up questions after the webinar.
And again, as we look to see if there's any last questions before we move on, again, we appreciate everything you've done leading up to this point for leading up to Winter Games, but also what every one of you does year-round in support of the athletes and partners. And we appreciate your patience with us and working with you. And we hope to have a great Winter Games. I know our management team has been working at great lengths, again, to provide the best we can for the athletes. So please pass that along to any of your coaches and other support from your area and county programs.
And looking here, I do not see any other questions for folks. So thank you. I think that was the end of the slides as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I moved back from my outdated slides, so that's not glaring at me.
Okay. So it was nice to see some names from the past. But yeah, so thank you very much. We hope everybody has a happy and healthy remainder to the holiday season. Look for the registration information or the link. It'll be a survey, an online survey for the 6th and all. It really, again, we're looking for a roster so we can get rough counts and such. Great. Again, happy holidays, and thank you for your time.
Have a good night, everyone.